Not too long ago, but we realized we have quite a lot in common. Previous coaches we've worked with and had the opportunity to travel around the world, and we never met each other until having presented at a conference just a few months ago. But Michael is the former assistant coach of our Canadian men's national team. He's been the technical director at BC Soccer. He's been in various different competitions with the Canadian national teams, including senior team and youth teams all over the world for many years. I'll leave it at that. He's going to talk about a topic which is really important to all of us: building a winning culture of soccer.
Or do we?
Okay, so
thanks.
I'll leave it with that.
Thank you, Richard, and to begin with, thank you and to the association. First of all, for inviting the clinicians that you did invite and the people that have been here, and I think everybody would share by doing is very valuable. It's a missing link in our football education. We need more of it, and I think everybody in this room should feel pleased that they have the honor to listen to a number of different people talking on a number of different subjects. So from my perspective, a lifelong committed person to coach education, thank you, and I appreciate the help that you've done for everybody. For you, guys and girls, first and foremost, you need to turn to your right or left, and you need to shake the hand of the person who's next to you. Okay, that's excellent, because you are the last people standing in this. I've been to many of these, and I presented like this. So, this is what I'm going to talk to you about. So, to have this many still in the room, fantastic. So, I appreciate that. It's always a difficult situation. They're long days sometimes. There's lots going on. You're busy people. Some of you are volunteers, some of you are professionals, some of you are families. I totally understand. So, from my perspective, thank you very much for being here and willing to listen. Two topics that I'm going to touch on today. One is, as you see at the top there, building a winning culture of soccer, or do we? The second topic I'm going to talk to you about is more about you, the coaches, and to share a little bit of my experiences and journey as a professional football coach, and what happened to me and some of the key things I learned that I think can be transferred to you. So, in terms of who I am, you heard Richard talk to you about. I had the great honor of being involved with our national teams program, including be the head coach, which was probably the greatest achievement of my life, and will continue to be. Don't tell my wife that. She knows I'm married to the game, so there you go. But what I can tell you is, when you're talking about football and you're talking about football CVs, okay, everyone has one. Okay, you can put in all sorts of stuff. At the end of the day, as a coach, it's how you apply those experiences and what you do with them to better yourself and better the players you're involved with. So don't get drawn in too much on CVs and things like that. It's how you can sort of compartmentalize those situations. Okay. To start.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
Back in the driveway, we were nothing.
This is not just a game anymore.
Here, we here, as a team, we're going to come. It's all about winning.
You cannot be afraid to lose. I don't care what the scoreboard says. At the end of the game, you play like that. We cannot be defeated.
So what? It still doesn't make us good football players.
Wait a second, guys. Whoever said you had to be good to play football?
Everything y'all done to this point
Means nothing if you lose yourself.
you don't have to prove nothing to nobody except yourself.
We can be ourselves.
It's not a ball that I see. It's a ball what you see.
Now it's time to see who has the heart.
It ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
We made a great effort so far. Let's just keep it up.
Follow me. Walk with me out onto that field.
I want you over that ball like a fat kid on a cupcake.
It's their rink, it's their ice, and it's their fucking town.
But you can walk through those doors, hold your heads up high, and call yourself
Ducks.
Nobody comes into our house and pushes us around.
We have the opportunity to play like God the next half of football.
We can't have anyone freak out there, okay?
If you can do that, gentlemen,
We will be perfect.
for a bunch of Mexican baseball players, that ain't too bad.
What are you gonna do? Let's go! Let's go!
You've probably seen lots of those situations and those little tidbits. The reason I refer to it is, Hollywood has done an incredible job of fabricating what winning means and trying to incorporate motivation into lots of different scenarios. I've been in dressing rooms with some of those speeches being played by coaches or by players. So what we want to do is sort of like grind down into a little bit more of exactly what it is when we're talking about winning and what it is when we're talking about culture. And the question really begs us is, what actually comes first? Is it the winning or is it actually the culture? And that's where you see in the title about, are we creating a winning culture? We have to decide to sort of what dictates what. What is affecting the situation that you're in as a coach? And that doesn't mean a coach of a youth team, a coach of a college team. It just means a coach in general. Because at the end of the day, just so everybody knows, winning is part of playing football. There's specific areas that you need to address differently in terms of age and stage specific, but winning is actually the philosophical belief of football. It's about putting the ball in the net more times than the other team, right? So there's nothing wrong with that concept, which sometimes gets debated. What is sort of affecting us now is really the first and foremost about the win itself. It is part of the modern DNA of the coach. It is a results-driven business. Economics has changed it at the highest level. You see people not keeping their job beyond a 3 to 4 to 6 game sort of skid. Today you saw something a game we didn't see it, but you may see it later. Where one of the coaches at Chelsea, Saudi, he very well may lose his job tomorrow, purely based on that one result. Whether there was sickness to the team, bad day, penalty, it doesn't matter. It is the result that may affect his ultimate stay or go scenario. So the win is really strong. The other thing that's really strong from a coach's point of view is the ego that comes. The ego that comes with being involved in the selfishness that comes into the whole process. And one of the things we have to look at is what sort of decisions are we making on a daily basis? Does it affect the player first and foremost? Or is it about you, the coach? Is it about coaches? Is it about the club? What is it? But certainly ego does give us something to think about when we're talking about what the next steps is in building towards a winning culture. That road to success always should be, every individual and every collective has some sort of motivational idea that they want to be successful. And I fully support that. I'm sure you support it, and I'm sure tons of people support it. But that success can't come at the expense of some of the internal things that must happen within your group if you're going to be successful. You look up there, you look at core values, you look at identity, you look at the importance of relationships, you look at the long-term versus the short-term, right? Those cannot be challenged by one individual's interest or ego or selfishness if you're going to move to that next level. People who are involved in that obviously are pretty much three things. Number one, the coach, right? So now we have to figure out what is the coach actually thinking and what is she thinking about potentially in terms of how they're affecting the group, the staff, the supporters, the volunteers, the club itself, the board of directors. There's so many pieces in the air that whole idea of standards and that collective view I just talked about in the previous slide is there to help the coach. It's there to help the coach organize and make sure that that roadway is paved perfectly to success. There's going to be a few bumps, but we certainly want a good solid road. The player. The interesting thing about players is they are the most important thing that we deal with, because without them, we don't have a game. And for many, many years, we've made far too many decisions not based on the player. And I'm talking from the top of your organization all the way down to when you get to the field level. If every decision you are making is not benefiting that player, I don't believe you're doing your job, and I don't think the organization's doing it. But the player is an interesting thing, because all the players are there for different reasons. They all might feel that it's, oh yeah, we want to be successful, we want to have a successful team, we want to win. Great. But interesting enough, when you get right down to it, some of the players are playing for different reasons. It may be for family. It may be for honor. It may be for money if you're talking about professional football. It may be for recognition. It could be for physical fitness and health, right? It could be for camaraderie because they don't have anything else in their life. So every player has some form of motivation in terms of why they're there in the group. So you as a coach have to monitor that, again, talking about the roadway. The team and the organization. There is nothing that will overrun the organization. If you're focused on the player and doing the right things, the organization themselves will be there to support you, if they're all on the same page. Again, going back to the road, specifically the road. So those are the three main components. The coach is there, the player obviously is there, and your organization and your team, or your club, whatever you want to say. From that basis, that is what I believe is actually what we should be doing, is building culture around your team and your club before you're building a win. Because the culture is going to deliver you hopefully more success than if you only focus on the win, whether it be an individual, a collective, a whole organization, a nation. And that's one of the things Canada has struggled with for many, many years. It does not have a recognized, consistent, coast-to-coast culture. It has pockets of football culture. It has pockets of coach education. It has pockets. And what the great challenge for us now is about unification and bringing that together. So when you look at this, we're actually going to build culture. So how do you build culture? Well, those are 7 key elements for me, personally, how I look to build a culture around the organization I'm involved in. Team-based, organizational-based. And this is not solely geared to a professional level of play or a national team. You can do this at any level and any place. Those 7 critical items: passion, leadership, the right atmosphere, encourage the right attitude, action-based, which we'll combine, you'll see in a second, inclusion, and authenticity. Being authentic. You need the foundation though. And what I mean by that is you need to gather the people around you. It's very important that everybody starts to build off the same foundation. Because if you don't have the solid foundation, you're going to go back and you're going to start renovating. There's no doubt about it. So solid foundation, which means a collective understanding and a vision that everybody shares. Passion. I've always said that our job when I was with the national team was to make sure that the environment that the players are in was conducive for them being successful. It was organized, it was professional, it had feedback, it gave them an opportunity to be better than they were when they came in. But I always said to them, guys, I can't play the game for you. You're the ones who have to gain the passion. You're going to have to find the reason why you're here. Whatever that reason may be, of the ones I just mentioned a couple minutes ago, find it, hook onto it, and drag yourself with the rest of us. Because at the end of the day, if there's no passion in this, we're not going to see success. And you know, being in football, how important passion is to football. Whether that be club to club, country to country, individual to individual, league to league, whatever, the passion is what drives the game, both domestically and internationally. Leadership. It is fundamentally the most important thing that you will do. And as a coach, you are the leader. You may have people above you, who's the vice president, the president, the chair, maybe a technical director, but you, the coach, are the leader of that group of people that you affect below. And the principles are the same. For you to set the standards yourself, to make sure that they understand the responsibilities that are required in gaining a winning mentality, and most importantly, the expectations that you put on them. It's critical for them to be both responsible, but be reachable, but not easy, right? AAA, this is something I personally use and continue to use. AAA, you hear lots of things. AAA in the United States would be the Automobile Association, the ratings of steak. You know, people quote it and say, oh, that's a AAA quality over there. So for me, I like to do 3 things inside my environments within the team or within the organization I'm involved in. And I call it the AAA delivery. Number 1, time and time again, that is proven to be the most important thing that you do as a coach is to create the appropriate atmosphere. The atmosphere that you create, negative or positive, will be the one that you and your team will exist in. That is a reality. So why would you create a negative one? Let's create a positive one. Let's create one that it has some joy to it, but it's vibrant, it's competitive, and most importantly, it's got a sense of growth, a sense of opportunity for it. So establishing the atmosphere is the number 1 thing we do. We sit down with the leadership team, we sit down with the staff, you would sit down with your assistant coach, maybe your TD, maybe your club, and sit down and say, look, what sort of atmosphere do we want to have here? And what does it take to make sure that atmosphere is correct? And then it's the attitude. You know, if you are in football in Canada, and I'm sure Dick will attain to this, if you're not an optimist, I don't know what you are, because football is a great struggle in this country at times. So the choices is, what sort of attitude are you going to take? You're going to have your challenges, you're going to have your debates, you're going to have your arguments, you're going to have your wins, you're going to have your losses. But most importantly, you need to have the right attitude inside that atmosphere, right? And I like to use this, and I use it in another slide near the end. And it talks about state of mind. And really what it is about opportunity versus threat. And the story I'll tell you, for example, with the national team or the senior team, one of the first things we noticed when I joined the Benito Floro was that the men's team had this constant idea that everything that they were about to enter into was a threat to them, instead of an opportunity. They were looking at everything as, what will happen if we go? What will happen to me? What will happen to us? Right? And we had to slowly change the mindset in terms of, look guys, this is an opportunity. You have an opportunity to raise the standard of the game in Canada. You have an opportunity to be successful. You have an opportunity to expand your professional life. You have an opportunity to potentially play in World Cups and World Cup qualifying tournaments, right? So you have to change their attitude to find more opportunity versus threat. And that happens even at youth football. You know, you see with young players that they feel threatened rather than excited with the anticipation. And then at the end of the day, if you've got the right atmosphere and you've got the right attitude, then you've got to encourage them to be actionable. You know, you need them to look and say, we need execution, right? You might think it, you might write it down, you might discuss it, but you've got to execute. You've got to enhance them in their execution ideas. You as the coach, and as the player, and as the club, you need to also communicate. You communicate your thoughts, communicate your feedback, communicate your plan, communicate your concerns, whatever it is, communication has to take place. Now, one thing about communication is, you can talk about communication a lot, and everybody does, it's a buzzword. The actual idea of completing the process is probably your biggest challenge. How are you going to get that message all the way to where it really needs to go? Because maybe I start here, but actually I need to influence here, right? So you've got to find a way to bridge that in your process. Work ethic, proactive, very important. Focus on performance, right? Again, and this is just not an aspect with professional teams. You want your young players to be performance driven. And what does that mean? It could be they have a great time because they perform the act that you put in front of them correctly. So that's performance. So you got to get them to focus on that. And they need to meet your standards. You went back to that earlier slide that, you know, if you're not a standard-based environment that you're creating, what are you going to expect from them? So you need to make sure that they meet those standards. And then at the end of the day, everybody involved has to respect the positions that you take. The coach, the player, the reality of positional play, the reality of time on the field, the reality of other interests that they may have. Those are the young players, but it's no different at the highest level too. Because not everybody's going to get the accolades. right? Our buzzword right now is Alphonso Davies, right? Okay? I had the pleasure of working with Fonzie for a number of years. The reality is, everybody had to understand and respect what was happening with Alphonso Davies, because players at that level could quickly turn and go, you know, why is he getting all the press? I'm busting my ass over here, and he's getting the press, and look how old he is, but you have to really control those situations, right? So everybody's got to understand, you all play your role, and if they all play the right role, the entire situation will rise to the next level. Belief. I'm a prime example of it. We're going to talk about that journey in a second. But what I can tell you most importantly is, if you cannot get your group to believe, you're always going to struggle to reach your objective. So I get very upset and really bothered when I hear coaches telling a player or a coach telling another coach that it's not possible. Right? It might seem romantic to you, but you need to keep the belief system happening that that player has an opportunity to go to the next level. Whatever that level may be. That may be going up from a regional team into a provincial team. It may be a house team to the next level. It may be retention, just keeping in the game. You know, if you can keep players in the game at any level in this country, it's a great positive influence on what we're doing at the national levels and the professional levels. Right? So belief is imperative. We need to have it. Inclusion is, in today's arena, is very important. The idea of one person driving an organization is just totally unacceptable and unrealistic. There's so many actions happening around you, and I'm talking right through the game. And one of the most important things that you can do to help that process and help your vision and help your standard-based idea is to include them in the process. Give them some skin in the game. What is their view on each item that may affect them or may affect the team? If you can monitor the inclusion and the participation, you're going to find yourself meeting your objectives much quicker. You know, they have to have an active role in what you're doing. Specifically, staffing, your assistant coach, the volunteer support, a TD, your coaching staff, maybe your medical staff and support staff, whatever that may be, they need to feel that they are included in this process. Ultimately, you may be the boss, as I just said a minute ago, you are the leader, but you'll make much better decisions if you're able to receive information about the topic and make a much grander decision on what you need to do in the organization. And just to sum it up, you know, I always believe they talk about, you know, this quantity quality thing. I believe you can have both. You know, I believe you can have the quantity required with quality if it's appropriately managed. Professional leadership is going to grow your organization. They're going to have the focus on the final prize when we get back to that success scenario. Value people equals value added. You know, I saw a quote the other day. He said, you know, successful leaders they let people go, they don't develop people. And I'm a firm believer that in the value of people, the value of the people around you. Everybody in your organization has a role to play. And if you value them and you honor them and you help them, just like an association, a coach association, your internal club, it's a positive situation. And that passion to improve, you know, we'd like to have every player come in, and as I said earlier, I used to say to them, my goal over the next 10 days or 2 weeks or whatever it was, or when I was at BC Soccer, would be on a longer period of time, is my goal is to make you just that much better than when you came in the door. And it might be just that much, but it might be the one thing that takes them to the next level, right? And sometimes that minutia in front of you, you forget about what you're there to do, and that is to create the best environment for those players. And as that player walks out the door, and I said to one of the coaches here the other day, he asked me, he's involved in youth coaching, I thought it ran clear in my mind. I said, what do I want out of the end of my session? And I said, at what age are you talking about? And he said it was down in single digit area, right? I said, you know what I think you want? You want that kid to walk across the room and look at his dad or look at his mom and say, when do I get to come back? When do I get to come back? When you've done that, you're on your way. I think I'll take questions at the end in general, but I'll just keep going. So, anybody know where that was? Honduras. That was San Pedro. Dick, you're a cheater. When I was thinking about what I kind of wanted to talk about to you guys, and we were talking about Canadian coaches, I thought it would be a great opportunity to tell you about some of the stuff that happened to me. And not that it is about me, because ultimately I want it to be about you. But I want to tell you this, and I tell this to everybody I talk to. You saw that first slide. It said, "Hey Michael, do you want to be our coach?" Well, that happened to me, I can't even remember how many years ago it was, when the librarian at my high school, I met him in the village where I live, and he said, "Hey, I haven't seen you in ages, I hear you're overseas and chasing a football dream," and this is when I was young. And I said, "Yeah, that's what I'm doing." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Did you hear about the school?" And I said, "No, what's up?" And he goes, "Oh, they're canceling the soccer program." I said, "What?" "Yeah, they're canceling the soccer program. They don't have a coach." And I said, "Well, I'll do it." And he goes, "You want to coach?" And I said, "I don't know, but I don't want the soccer program to die, so sure, I'll coach." I never coached. I was still thinking I was going to be a player. Big mistake. My dad told me one day as I'm eating breakfast, he walked over and he said, and he threw down the newspaper in front of me and he says, "I think you should get a real job." And it was the ads for jobs. And true story. And so I did it, right? And so when you look at that situation, I was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Okay? Don't hold that against me. I lived overseas for many years, but I was born in Winnipeg, Manitoba. I was a uncertified, unexperienced, didn't know what I was doing, loved the game, coach of a high school team. And then I was the head coach of the national team of Canada, playing in World Cup qualifying in San Pedro Sula. And that was 2.5 hours before kickoff. 2.5 hours. Wow. So what I'm going to tell you is this. Do not, no matter what you're doing, you may not aspire to be the national team coach or a professional coach, but whatever environment you're in, it's an important job, and don't let anybody ever tell you it's not possible, because it is. It is. So whatever you're doing, take that forward with you, because I've seen it, and we need more stories like it. But as I went through, I want you to remember a couple of things, because they're important to your growth as a coach. When, who, what, where. Quickly, when was my high school moment. I'm going to be a coach. Who? Many of you may know him, many of you don't. Dick knows him very well. Alan Churchard, probably one of the greatest coach educators this country's ever had. Said to me one day, "You're going to be a coach." I said, "I am?" He goes, "Yeah, you do are, but you're going to start right down here at the very first certification course. There's no jumping. There's no going to a B license. Because I'm going to walk around with my B license. So do me. Oh, no, you're going to learn every stage and age, so you're a much greater rounded coach." I'll never forget that. Amazing man. What happened? I ended up getting a UEFA license. Value education. This is a fabulous opportunity you're involved in. We need more of it, I just said. Zhao says, "You need more of these things." Canada Soccer is saying, "We need more of these things." Pending CPL, we need more of these things, right? Value your education, make sure you follow that pathway. And you're not, it's like a lawyer. You can go to law school, but it doesn't mean you're going to be a good lawyer, right? And you don't get called to the bar right away. So it is a journey that way. Where, for me, at the end of the day, it was standing in Morocco when I was the head coach and coming up on the field and looking over at Harvey Renardi, who was the Morocco coach, and I'm thinking, this guy's in the World Cup. I'm like, what am I doing here? And that's the where moment, right? So jot them down. Remember them. Refer back to them. And as I say, don't think it's just because I'm talking about national team. This can happen at any level. Little things that again, motivate you to be involved, right? But there were 4 key things for me, and it's actually 1.1, 2.2, 3.3, 3.4, but there's 4 elements in the journey that I want you to remember. Sacrifice. It is one of the things that coaches in this country have yet to really, really appreciate. Okay? You are sacrificing now because you may have families, you're here. You may have training, you're here. I get that. But in general, there's going to be moments where you need to make a sacrifice. You know? And that might be missing certain situations. Taking a choice to be responsible to what you're supposed to do as the coach of that team and not bugger off because you've got something else to do. Taking that chance. Maybe one of you get an opportunity to work somewhere else in the world. Taking the chance, you may have to sacrifice. Sacrifice is a big thing if you want to be in professional football or football development in Canada. However, the joy factor, the funny bone. We take the game so seriously sometimes, okay? We really do. Please enjoy your journey. Remember the moments, remember the people you're with. Remember the places you go. Remember the players that you were affecting. Remember the staff you had with you. Remember that great game. Remember that tournament. Remember that trip. Enjoy every moment of it, you know? And I can tell you, all the players that I have worked with, and by the way, Toss is one that enjoys it probably more than anybody I know. But all the players I know that had successful international careers always told me about how much fun and the joy they had when they were in youth development. Oh, I remember the days. And then we went here with my club, and then we went here with the provincial program, or then I got chosen here, and then we had this day out, and then the coach took us out, we did some, you know, a pool day. Like, they remember these things. Those are joyous things that will keep them and hopefully will retain. And it's the same thing for coaches. Education, I just said it. Please, please understand the value in continuing to educate yourself. You are learning day in and day out. You learn more sitting here chatting each other before we do these presentations probably than some of the presentations. Because you're going to share your views on something, you're going to share your view, you're going to tell a story, you're going to say, hey, I saw something, I read a book, whatever. So it's going to give you awareness, it's going to give you best practice, it's going to provide you progress in those opportunities, and ultimately, most importantly, you're going to be more effective. My favorite line. Football does not only speak English. We have a tendency to pigeonhole ourselves on numerous items. And I think we have to always be panoramic in our view of education. There is a lot of good people around the world, in Canada, in your community, in your province, who can share best practices with you, who can share different ideas. It may not be that you have to implement them, but don't turn away from accepting the idea of the opportunity, on the way you may train, the way you may evaluate, the way you may look at talent ID, right? Gather as much as you can, because then you're going to put yourself in the best position to make that final decision exactly what your belief system is. Principles, never underestimate them, never compromise them, and always keep them really close. And that just doesn't go for your integrity, ethics, honesty, and respect idea that the nice little picture says up there, but it's also your principles, what you believe in. Just because one group decides they want to play one way, and maybe you're playing another way, but your principles are, that's what I want to do, as long as you're not endangering the player, or you're contravening a club strategy, you know, sort of scenario, live by your principles. It's really important, you know. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to wake up in the morning and decide exactly what you're going to do. And the methods that you look at, you know, they're varied. It's a spice of life, as it says up there. I got asked on an interview a couple of months ago about, we really want to know what your philosophy is. And I said, okay, well, there's only one philosophy, and that's to win. And he was shocked that I said that. I said, no, you don't understand. If you look at the definition of philosophy, philosophy is about what your ultimate belief is. And as I said, the game is about scoring more goals than the other team. Now, how you get there, that's up to you. Your method of training, your method of formation, your system of play, the attitudes you wish to bring to the game. Those are all your methods, right? So you are in control of those methods. And they're varied. They can be very varied. But if you're seeing success, and again, without endangering people in the process, and not contravening any rules or regulations, I expect you to look at all the methods that are out there to again, advance your own education. Faith, and I repeat that little quote again, this is for me the last two for the biggest ones for me. It's all in your state of mind, right? Don't think things as threats. Think of it as opportunities. Don't be afraid to stick your hand up, right, and ask questions. You know, because we always say to all the players all the time, we say, look guys, the game's moving very quickly. We're looking for smarter players, and the smarter players are the ones that are going to ask the questions and get the answers, not the ones who are going to sit in the back of the room and don't want to be embarrassed. Because they're the ones who are going to get caught. Right? So faith for me is put some faith in what you're doing. And then have the conviction to follow through on it. Right? Stay the course. Continue to review. Apply yourself. Understand that you're capable. Interact with all levels of football as much as you can. And at the end of the day, from my perspective, I look at it and it's been a massive journey for me. And those slides are all over the place, but all you need to do is drop your own pictures in there, right? Because you're all going to have some form of journey as a coach. And if you can stay to some of the key elements and principles laid out, I think you're going to have a better journey than most. So, from my perspective, I'm very lucky to have employed my passion. I'm very lucky to have been given that opportunity. But there's a lot more of me out there that deserve the same opportunity. So, maybe it will be some of you, but hopefully we see a lot more. Thank you again, Richard, for the time and the effort. It's amazing. Left a couple minutes. I'm totally open to any questions. It doesn't have to be about that. It can be anything about football. I'm open to. I'd be happy to participate with you if you have anything. Just left a couple minutes. Yeah.
Yes. When you first came in as an assistant or main coach of the national team, how long, in that case or in general, do you take observing first to act? How long do you take looking at things before to say, oh, this is not my taste, I would like to change?
Yeah, national team activity is a little bit different than club activity because it comes in these short moments. So your assessment is very refined to that period of time. In terms of a larger picture, you start very early. The minute you are appointed, you start to do your analysis. You literally are starting to lay out a strategic plan and do a threat analysis of exactly what is potentially could threaten the group. So you can change that mentality, as I said, to more opportunities. Club football, it's an ongoing scenario which must have touch points where you can go back and say, are we making the right decisions? And generally the results are going to give you that information. But in terms of when I was with the national team, we were always looking at what we were doing pre-camp, during camp, and post-camp. Lots of pre-loads, lots of actions that we had already set out, but most importantly, it was always to sit down and debrief to see what we've done well, what we've done poorly, what we need to improve on, and what we missed. And then we incorporate the players into that through interaction. Because we did a lot of, in the Benito Floro era, we did a lot of one-on-one stuff. We did a lot of interviews, a lot of growth planning. We always communicated individual WhatsApp groups for different scenarios, and we communicate that way because we don't see them. We'd only visit them in club activity, and then we'd see them in the camp. So. Yep.
When you were referring to your AAA strategy about like atmosphere and attitude and being actionable, have you ever come across a point in time, like whether it be national or you at your high school level, where you struggled to like maintain that atmosphere and that attitude in your players? And if so, what did you do to kind of rejig that so it's everyone's on the same path?
I cut them, traded them. No. You're screwing up my atmosphere. No, it's going to happen. There's going to be times, and that's where I think what is good is this whole inclusion piece. The player of today is changing dramatically, right? And they have their own sort of motivating factors. When I played in the black and white days, and you didn't have that type of inclusion at all. You were playing under fear all the time, the fear of not getting selected, the fear of not being seen. The players don't have that now. So if you're not engaging them on an ongoing basis and telling them exactly why we're doing it, you struggle with them. In terms of when it happens, you do your best to sort of 911 it, and then you literally have to reset it, and you have to bring it back. You can't. One thing I would tell you is if you sniff it out, and you know that this is what happened, don't think that it's just going to go away, because if you've thought it, it's already probably been happening for a while. So you've got to stop the blocks, reset, and sit down and with them.
How do you do it in a way, I guess, where, I mean, I work with women, so in a way where I guess they don't necessarily lose the respect for you or feel that they're ever being belittled. So it doesn't feel like emotions kind of
absolutely
get into play quite a bit.
Yeah, I think there's a point where you've got to cut it off, and you got to say, look, we're going this way, and for lack of a better term, we're going this way, and if you're going to be a part of it, you're more than welcome to be a part of it. But at some point, you're going to have to say, but up to that point, again, I think this is me, remember, and lots of coaches are different. There's some that are very, they don't talk to the players. My belief is, as we move forward, you get more out of them, engaging them, so they understand, and then they can make their own decisions at that point in time. And if they're not going to be part of it, there's the door.
Yeah. Okay.
Michael, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You actually, I want to mention two things that you said. Is creating culture.
Yeah.
And what we see at the national level in terms of coaching is very often the changes. It's like we don't are able to maintain a direction or maintain one. Why? What is affecting us?
Well, full disclosure, I got fired, so I'm one of those coaches. So, and all coaches get fired sooner or later, right? Richard? No, but you know what? It's a really good question, and we have. This is again. I'm going to speak personally. I'm not speaking on behalf of any organization or anything. I'm giving you my personal feedback. I find our process to be flawed, and what I mean by that is, I think over the last 20 years when I've been involved, I know personally a number of coaches that could have been of great assistance to us, but they didn't fit the picture. Okay? And that comes back to this whole methodology idea. Is it one way and it's only one way? And I'm not a believer in that. I believe the person, female, male, doesn't matter, will ultimately make their own decisions on what they want to implement, but they need more information around it. You can't funnel it all and say, that's it, right? I'm not a believer in that. The issue comes really is that we had lacked a real structure and pathway to what we were doing. I think we've made some really, really big strides in that area, and I think you're going to see more strides coming. But like any environment that is changing, it's going to be wrought with discussion, argument, and debate. One of the reasons that we always had these issues is we didn't have a pinnacle of what everybody needs to sort of adhere to. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I can't remember the quote, you've probably read it somewhere, it's, the best coaches lose their best players, right? But we've had situations where it's like, you're not going anywhere, that's going to affect me. So we needed to streamline that process, and it's ruffled a lot of feathers, but I think we're making very big strides towards that. As it relates to the coach situation, it really comes down to the perceived abilities at the time. I just said to Richard today, I'm a big believer to say to you that I think Benito Floro would still be the coach of Canada if we had got to the Hex. We may have not got out of the Hex, but it's my personal opinion he'd still be here because some of the work he did way back in the scene. But it's World Cup qualifying, right? You go out. Hardy was the same, Have we lost those people? Yeah, in some ways. I think we should have done a better job of trying to keep a lot of people inside the programs, which would then create opportunities for new people to come to the program by sending them out and advising. It's a challenge.
Yeah. Now, the second question is, I don't know if maybe it's leaning to or link with the first one. It's related with, I like what you said, not only football speaking English. Is that a lot of people with,
Well, it's
with
Espanol.
different accents, with a Roman accent sometimes coming?
I think early in Canadian soccer, I think we were overrun by an expat type culture. And that's, I'm not telling tales out of school. I think it was true because that was the access to education, that was the access to football. As our country has grown, we've seen a much broader stroke of coaches across the country, and I think this is part of our evolution. And I think the idea, and that's why I go back to the methods, the idea that there's only one group that's going to deliver, I think you'll find start to drift away from that because it's going to be pushed up. I'm not on this topic, but I'll jump over. Canadian Premier League is a prime example, okay? When we talked about culture, we had a black hole of football. We developed all these youth players out of all your clubs across the country, and they got to 16 and they opened the door, and whoa, there's nowhere to go. And they closed the door again. We didn't have our own domestic answer. Is that the fault of Canada soccer? Not really. But the reality is now it looks like we're addressing that issue, which then comes to address your issue. Coach opportunities, management opportunities, medical opportunities, officials opportunities, business opportunities. We start to create an industry and we start to create a culture around it, which will then offer those opportunities for those people to be recognized. In terms of selections, sometimes it comes down to personal relationships. Sometimes it comes down to the qualities that people think are in the coach's scenario. But I think back in a time, I would agree with you. Now I think we're seeing a change. Because I can tell you in these situations, you wouldn't see as many different demographics. And when I've talked in the last little while, I've seen a real change in the demos in terms of who's attending, why they're there, who they're working with, what they're doing. I hope that answered. I don't know.
Más o menos.
Sí, por supuesto. Lo siento,
So I don't know if this is a thing, but I'm talking about mid-season crisis.
Yes.
I don't know how many people experience this. As a coach, what methods did you use to get out of this? Because you could be doing everything right, and you're winning games, and all of a sudden that you cannot get out of
Yes.
this.
It's like
So
they've never played before.
I'm sorry?
It's like they've never played before.
Yes.
Yes.
So I would like to hear your opinion, maybe of Dick's, and maybe one of the coaches here to just get a different opinion.
My opinion of that is very simplistic, and it's called about the basics and principles. And you literally have to walk yourself back. I mentioned today to someone, I don't know where we were standing, and I was talking about one of the greatest challenges for coaches, and the great ones I've seen have done this. They're in the middle of a session, and they go, this is shit, you know what I mean? And they stop it, and they go, right, let's all step back over here and restart. It's very hard to do that, right? And because you think it's a reflection on you, whereas actually, if you really look at it, it's a reflection on the players if they keep going down this road and aren't successful. So mine is about principles, going back to basics, and reintroducing the concepts you've already given them, which they showed they could do, but for some reason, and you also have to evaluate, remember, what's going on, depending on the age group, what's going on around them, non-football. Schooling, personal growth, all those items are all part of it that may be affecting their play, but you just don't know that. Home life, those types of things. Team dynamics, maybe something's happened, those things. Those usually are the things that cause that. If it's happening because you don't think they've got it tactically or technically, that comes down to you saying, okay, we've pushed them far enough now, we need to step back here and find some success again, and then raise the bar. That's how I would do it. Anything else? That's not bad. All right, all good?
Are you sharing with us the things?
Yeah, I think so. Are you sharing that?
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm an open book, guys. Girls, you can take anything you want.
Yeah, and I know there's periodically there's been lots of questions and stuff. So there's going to be PDFs of all of the presentations, and those will be sent out to you guys. So
Yeah, and then you can close up. I want to thank you all.
Oh, thank you very much. It was good, man.
When you send it out, you can find me, you can email me, and I'm happy to discuss football with you. That's what I do, and I think we have to have more of that in our craft, so feel comfortable in doing that. I may not give you the answers you want, but I'll try to give you an answer. So, but I appreciate you all coming out and enjoyed your weekend, and I really thank you for staying.
Thank you.